The images show the population data during the Mendocino complex fire in Northern California for 10,000 people, as provided by the Facebook Disaster Map dataset. The map shows the area 2 days after mandatory evacuations were in place. The second map shows the area 1 day after the evacuation orders were lifted. During the Mendocino complex fire, most people fled the fire perimeter when an evacuation was in place, which was not surprising. But what surprised was where people were headed or not headed. Originally thought about data could be nice to track which places people decide to go, but the information didn't show any significant pattern for this fire. Research was funded by NASA. Was expecting a very simple trend, but evacuations are more complicated to understand. People perhaps had more shelter options to flee to, so the evacuation patterns were dispersed. When the evacuations were lifted, the data showed a much clearer trend of where people were headed. Most were returning back to their homes and hometowns. How the population bounces back post-disaster is an important indicator of whether the evacuated areas may be safe for residing. In the Mendocino complex fire, most areas saw people returning. Pakistan to back into Afghan talks outcome SAP. For Pakistan, the concluding assessment of Afghanistan has been 1, 2. Leave Afghanistan to its own devices. Pakistan to back into Afghan talks outcome SAP. Dr. Moeed Yusuf said our region has been misused by global powers for long. Pakistan unveils details of new liberal visa policy for Afghanistan. Afghan nationals advised not to pay any fee in the name of facilitation to process visa to any agents, says statement. Pakistan begins work to negotiate PTA with Kabul. Dawood holds meeting to discuss matters related to trade. Afghan journalist killed in central Ghazni province. Rahmatullah Nexad was gunned down as he left his home in Ghazni city. Nine dead as Kabul car bombing targets Afghan lawmaker. Five rockets fired at U.S. airbase in Afghanistan. No group immediately claimed responsibility for attack, and the Taliban denied any involvement. U.S. in a position to stop Indian subversive activities in Pakistan. Envoy. Ambassador Khan says India responsible for resurgence of attacks in Pakistan. But that's not always the case, analyzed Pop. But that's not always the case. Analyzed population data from Facebook for the campfire. The data showed a large portion of the evacuated area did not see a sustainable population return, since many of those areas were destroyed. The Vedic period, or Vedic age, is the period in the history of the Indus Valley in Pakistan between the end of the urban Indus Valley civilization and a second urbanization which began in the central Indo-Gangetic Plain c. 600 BCE. It gets its name from the Vedas, which are liturgical texts containing details of life during this period that have been interpreted to be historical. The Vedas were composed and orally transmitted with precision by speakers of an old Indo-Aryan language who had migrated into the northwestern regions, now Pakistan. The Vedic society was patriarchal and patrilineal. Early Vedic Aryans were a late Bronze Age society centered in Nigeria. School abductions sparked by cattle feuds, not extremism, officials say. The kidnap of 344 schoolboys in northwest Nigeria had the appearance of an Islamist militant attack. There was even a video purporting to show some of the boys with members of U.S. suspects Iranians created website threatening American election officials. U.S. security agencies said on Wednesday they had highly credible information indicating that Iranian cyber actors were responsible for creating a website earlier this month featuring death threats aimed at U.S. Soldier martyred in exchange of fire with Indian forces. Indian troops committed unprovoked ceasefire violation in Satwal sector along their line of control, LAC, on Wednesday night. Pakistan Army responded effectively to Indian firing, causing substantial damage to Indian troops in Indian Hindu pilgrims miss out on celebrations in Pakistan. As many as 47 Hindu pilgrims from India could not reach Pakistan due to unknown reasons for participating in the celebrations of Moksha Ekadashi and Sri Gita Jayanti, Pakistan Today learnt on. Pakistan not holding any backdoor talks with India, FM Qureshi. A British broadcast regulator has fined an Indian channel, Republic Bharat, £20,000 for remarks made during a current affairs show that were expressions of hatred against Pakistan and its nationals. In a Israel will hold a snap election in March after Parliament failed on Tuesday to meet a deadline to pass a budget, triggering a ballot presenting new challenges for Prime Minister. As Singapore prepares to roll out COVID-19 vaccinations, its striking success in controlling the virus is making some question whether they should take the jabs. In a city-state where, as Singapore prepares to roll out COVID-19 vaccinations, its striking success, pollution deaths in India rose to pollution deaths in India. Toxic air killed more people in India in 2019 than in 2017, The Lancet, a medical journal, said in a report shared by the government on Tuesday, with 1.67 million deaths. U.S. sails nuclear sub through Strait of Hormuz amid Iran tensions. In an unusual show of force, the guided missile submarine USS Georgia sailed through the Strait of Hormuz while surfaced on Monday, escorted by the cruisers USS Philippine Sea and USS Port. Nicaragua passes law to sideline adversaries in 2021 election. Nicaragua's National Assembly on Monday passed a law to prevent people the government believes financed attempts to oust President Daniel Ortega, or encouraged sanctions against his officials from standing in 2021. Trump meets U.S. House Republican allies to push voter fraud claims. U.S. President Donald Trump met a group of Republican lawmakers on Monday in his thus far fruitless bid to gain momentum for claims that the November 3 presidential election won by Democrat The Vedas were composed and orally transmitted with precision by speakers of an old Indo-Aryan language who had migrated into the northwestern regions, now Pakistan. The Vedic society was patriarchal and patrilineal. Early Vedic Aryans were a late Bronze Age society centered in the Punjab, organized into tribes rather than kingdoms, and primarily sustained by a pastoral way of life. Around c. 1200 to 1000 BCE, Vedic Aryans spread. The Vedic period saw the emergence .21 Taliban killed, 9 wounded in southern Afghanistan. Defense Ministry. RPT National Rally says France, UK should resolve border issues bilaterally amid European Union incapacity. RPT Review Europe prepares to celebrate Christmas under shadow of Covid-19 pandemic. RPT Belgium, Russia cooperate on countering financing of terrorism ambassador. RPT EU's call for Belarus Lukashenko to engage in dialogue fell through Belgian ambassador. Moldovan President-elect Maya Sandu's inauguration ceremony to take place on Thursday. Russian Emergencies Ministry sappers defuse over 33,000 explosive objects in 2020. Over 1 million chickens to be culled in Japan's Chiba prefecture over bird flu reports. Number of COVID-19 cases in India rises by 24,712 to over 10.12 ml. Health Ministry. First plane with Russian Defense Ministry medical detachment leaves for Crimea. Car accident in northern Nigeria leaves 12 people dead, 25 more injured. Reports. South Korean president approves new health, interior ministers. The Vedic period saw the emergence of a hierarchy of social classes that would remain influential. Vedic religion developed into Brahmanical orthodoxy, and around the beginning of the Common Era, the Vedic tradition formed one of the main constituents of the so-called Hindu synthesis. Archaeological cultures identified with phases of Vedic material culture include the ochre-colored pottery culture, the Gandhara grave culture, the black and red ware culture, and the painted grey ware culture. The commonly accepted period of earlier Vedic age is dated back to the 2nd millennium BCE, after the collapse of the Indus Valley Civilization, which ended 1900 BCE. Groups of Indo-Aryan peoples migrated into northwestern area and started to inhabit the northern Indus Valley, now Pakistan. The Indo-Aryans originated in the Andronovo culture in the Bactria Marjana area, in present northern Afghanistan. Some writers and archaeologists have opposed the notion of a migration of Indo-Aryans into Pakistan. Edwin Bryant and Laurie Patton used their term Indo-Aryan controversy for an oversight of the Indo-Aryan migration theory and some of its opponents. These ideas are outside the academic mainstream. The knowledge about the Aryans comes mostly from the Rig Veda Samhita, their oldest layer of the Vedas, which was composed 500 to 1200 BCE. They brought with them their distinctive religious traditions and practices. The Vedic beliefs and practices of the pre-classical era were closely related to the hypothesized Proto-Indo-European religion and the Indo-Iranian religion. According to Antony, the Old Indic religion probably emerged among Indo-European immigrants.
And drains connected to the street drains. Street drains ran along the sides of the street and were lined with bricks to keep it clean, and drains connected to the street drains.
Trump shows he will not be leaving office quietly. President throws spanner into legislative works while using his pardon powers and still disputing election. Brexit Watch, China versus Australia, the winning industries of 2020. A deal on a future trading relationship could be announced on Christmas Eve. Trump pardons Stone and Manafort in new acts of clemency for allies. Charles Kushner, father of the president's son-in-law Jared, also pardoned. Britain and European Union poised to announce Christmas Eve Brexit deal. Work on legal text goes on through night, but agreement reached on fair competition and fishing rights. UK faces days of disruption at English Channel crossing. Britain struggles to return lorry drivers to France after Paris UK and European Union on cusp of trade deal. Sterling jumps as London and Brussels pore over fine print of Brexit agreement. Coronavirus variant first detected in South Africa identified in Britain. Health Minister says new strain may be more infectious than their one discovered in UK. Moldova's Prime Minister quits ahead of pro-Western president's inauguration. Ianchuku's departure comes a day before his pro-Russian ally is replaced as president by Maya Sandu. Ecuador presidential contender hits at IMF deal and pledges reforms. Andres Arauz blames austerity for triggering a self-induced recession in their country. Accounts of
Thank you.